welcome back to the show, everybody. Today I have Joe Jurken, senior partner of the ABC Group LLC, joining us. Joe, how are you today?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. Let's start with you. Tell us a bit about you and your backstory, and then move into what ABC Group LLC is doing these days.
Absolutely. So just a little backdrop of me, born and raised in Milwaukee, Pius High School grad, Marquette grad. Lived in Grove for the last 30 years, four grown kids, grandpa, business owner, avid sports fan, big Marquette basketball fan.
That's one of the most efficient backgrounds I've ever heard. That's awesome. Thank you. So,
You got
tell
it.
us about the ABC Group LLC.
Sure. Yeah. We're a managed service provider helping U.S. companies that import product from Southeast Asia. We help them manage their supply chains. We have boots on the ground, China, Vietnam, Cambodia, India, Malaysia, and Thailand. And our client base is national as a rule, but we have a very nice core business here in the state of Wisconsin.
And how did you decide to do this? Like, how did you get into this particular version of uh, a high level service company?
Yeah, the story's long-winded, and I'll try to make it condensed. But my family owned a tannery here in Milwaukee, and my dad was an international trader back when I was a kid. I remember being in high school, my dad going to Korea, Taiwan, and my dad sent me to China in 1985. I was 21 years old, and
Wow.
it was to help us sell our leather to the shoe manufacturers in Southeast Asia. So for about a 15-year period, I was spending 1 to 2 weeks a month in Southeast Asia, working for a family business,
Holy cow.
and so got a lot of extensive, experience in dealing in Asia, particularly China and Taiwan. And unfortunately, the leather business, as a rule, in the United States kind of migrated to Asia, and we decided to close our company in 2001.
Okay.
And at that point, I started the ABC Group.
Okay. So, Southeast Asia in the late 80s and 90s, so it was all five-star hotels and
Well, I can say this.
romantic business travel, all five-star romantic business travel.
What I will say this, that the flight was the most difficult part. I mean, back then it
Yeah.
was not like the airplanes. I mean, obviously 747s, but direct flights were not as common. But the one perk that my dad allowed was finding, 4 and 5 star hotels,
Yeah.
and they did exist. But not as to the abundance they are today. But I always
Yeah.
traveled pretty well back in the day.
I only was in China on one work trip, and so my friend group's like, "Oh, that's super cool." I'm like, "Yeah, sit in a coach seat for 17 hours and then get on a train and then drive 6 hours for a 35-minute meeting someplace and tell me how romantic you think the travel to this Asia
Well, I can
was."
tell you, I feel your pain. That is
Yeah,
spot on, and
yeah,
that there's no doubt that travel. One of my biggest pet peeves was people thinking how glamorous
yeah,
spending 1 to 2 weeks a month in Asia was. I always joke. I wish I would have. My dad would have sent me to Florida in 1985 rather than China,
sure.
but unfortunately,
Yeah,
that wasn't the option.
yeah. I mean, it's a little bit like owning a business, right? Like that's one of the reasons we do this show is people think owning a business is the glamour, glitz and glamour that they see on, Facebook or Instagram, and we're kind of bashing that concept with the reality of it's not all, five-star meals and travel and all that stuff, but it's the day-to-day grind of being a business owner that people get through. So you started this, like, what was there a day when you got done, the family business closed? Was there a realization or a learning that you had? You're like, I'm going to do this on my own? Or was it just something because you'd been in a family business, you wanted to still be in charge? Or how did that shake out?
It really was a combination of a lot of things. First and foremost, I definitely, you know, business has been in my family. We talk business every day. And so, I mean, when we're sitting around the dining room table or kitchen table, and I was a kid,
Yep.
we talk balance sheets, business, clients. And so it really was kind of in my DNA to want to do something, either with a family or on my own. And the realization just came is that I looked at China back in 2001, and there were certain industries that were prevalent there: clothing, footwear, electronics, toys.
Yep.
But a lot of smokestack manufacturers had not entered into China yet. And I said, we have a skill set. We know how to do business in China. And so the realization, I I never thought about going to get a job for somebody else. I'll put it that way. I had to figure out, what the
Yeah.
business was going to be, and then it
Yeah.
clicked. And I do want to mention though, you talk about, the travel and the difficulty of starting a business. I drove I-90, I-80 up and down Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, literally every week for the first 3 or 4 years of starting this business, staying in Motel 6, Red
Yeah.
Roof. I
Yep.
started the company with $500 and a card table and a fax machine.
Wow. What's
And
a fax
so
machine?
a fax machine, exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't sound all that glamorous and simple either. It sounds like the actual work of starting a business.
No, it was great. It was one of some of the most exciting times of my life. And I mean, it's something I'm proud of. And I just, something I think you have to start that way. Not everyone, I needed to start that way.
Yeah. So tell us a little more detail about what the Group LLC does. I know we talked on the pre-call. So, who are the right customers that you guys can have a big impact with? What's how's the sausage made? What role? I know we talked a little bit about, I didn't totally understand what the role you guys played was, so you can share a little more detail about the nuts and bolts of what you guys do.
Sure, absolutely. So really what we do is from soup to nuts. We help American companies qualify and vet suppliers to meet their needs. So if you have a foundry and you want to get castings, we will work with you to find the right partner for you in one of the markets that you would like to go into. More importantly, though, is we really are a hands-on company. So once we find the right potential supplier, we're very active on product development at that factory, doing first article inspections, PPAP inspections. Um, we're very active on quality control programs for our clients, supplier improvement programs, and logistics support. So in a nutshell, for a lot of our clients, they buy enough product from Southeast Asia, but they don't buy enough that they can justify having their own team on the ground. We take the large companies here in Wisconsin, they have dozens or hundreds of
Yeah.
people on the ground in different markets, where our client base is typically a supplier to the larger companies,
Okay.
and they are buying meaningful product from Southeast Asia for their business, but not enough to justify having their own team. And so really what our model has been, and it goes back to my family business days, was we try to copy what a sourcing operation looked like for a big company
Okay.
and downsize that, and to be able to do it on a more or less on a rented basis. So there's not a permanent investment. And the
Yep.
models worked extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're somebody who's thinking about getting stuff overseas, right, and you don't have, like Joe's not lying, the last organization I worked for, we had 62 people in China, um, because we bought a bunch of stuff there. Uh, but if it was a $700 million company, so we could afford. I mean, it's a different cost structure. It was a different cost structure in China, but if you're looking, buying $1 million or $5 million worth of stuff overseas, you're not going to be able to afford that. So that's the spot. You still need quality controls overseas. You still need vendor support and interface with the vendor. So that's what you guys are doing, like you said, on a rentable, on a timeshare basis type thing. When they need you, they need you, and when they're not, when everything's up and running, they're just cutting POs themselves and getting their product in.
Yeah, and the one thing that we are seeing, the big trend we have seen over the last couple of years, there's obviously a lot of concern geopolitically, tariff-wise on China. A lot of companies are looking to de-risk from China to some degree. And what we have probably the fastest growing segment of our service is helping companies like your previous employer where you had 62 people, where they're going, well, we don't think we need 62 anymore. Maybe we need 15, and then
Yeah.
we need 12 part-time. And so what we've been doing is helping companies like that, where we actually will onboard, our company will onboard their staff that they want to retain. And then we are offering alternatives during busy seasons. And so our client base has risen over the last couple of years to working with bigger companies that are looking to de-risk from China.
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing about your business is it's like, I mean, the invisible backbone, right? Like there's a whole bunch of work that has to get done for businesses to successfully source overseas. And it's a unique and niche expertise to be able to do it well. That most companies don't want to or can't or don't always need there. So it's a genius idea of putting those two pieces together. So tell us
Well, I
about someone
appreciate that.
tell us about someone who pushed you or inspired you over the years.
You know, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, my dad, my dad started his company in 1958 before I was born. My dad would be 106 years old if he was alive. Um, my dad was, I believe, a high school graduate. I never saw the diploma, but he claims he was a high school graduate and started a company and really just instilled common sense business, to me.
Yep.
Moving forward a little bit, when I was young in age and working in Asia for his company, we did a lot of work with the Nikes, Timberland, Wolverine, very large brands. And I was able to see, we were working with Timberland, the owners of Timberland, when they moved their production into China.
Yep.
So I got a firsthand view of what really successful high level people were doing in a different perspective than my dad. And then I would say finally, the last 16 years, my oldest son has been working here and brings a different perspective than I have. And, he actually inspires me to want to get smarter. And, I would say embrace where things are in 2026 versus 2001 when I started the company.
Yeah. That's interesting. We hired our daughter and now I feel a much higher level of let's go. Like we got to do something really cool because, otherwise I got to be the person to say, well, I'm fired. Merry Christmas, you're fired. So
Now,
that does,
there's no doubt in that. I don't know about for you, but one of the things I really find to be exciting is, I mean, literally every month my son has more and more responsibility here.
yeah,
And he's a driving force of what we're trying to do. And I'm working extremely hard to learn what
yeah,
where we're going to be a year from now, 3 years from now.
yeah. I mean, it's great that you're one of the people that's allowing that. Because a lot of times, we're coaching companies through generational transitions and the person who built it doesn't want anything to do with letting the next generation take over. And from our experience, 100% of the time, when the owner or the person who created the company gets out of the way, the company grows faster and makes more money because they created a great platform, right? Like these companies have been around 25, 30, 35 years. They have a great platform, but then they get tired. And this is the way we do things, right? So if it's whether it's a president, outside president, or a family member, it's an emotional step. And again, some people listening to this are thinking about succession. It's a bigger challenge emotionally to let go of the business for most people than it is, physically or whatever, right? It's like, hey, this is my baby. And there's a risk to me if you do better than me. And there's a risk to me if you don't do as good as I did. So it's like grasping onto it. We put our daughter through the ringer before we hired her. she isn't qualified for what she does marketing for. She's not got a marketing background, but for 2 years, she's like, "Hey, I want to do this." I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, well, go read." I mean, literally, I gave her this stack of stuff to read, and she read it, and she came back with a marketing plan. And I'm like, "Holy cow, that's like
That is
the
awesome.
actual marketing plan." So we've always long time been the right number of family members in a business is one, but when one wants to be part of it, like your ability to let your kid do that, that's a unique skill. And congratulations, because most people won't let their family come in and help grow. So
Well,
that's
I
exciting.
appreciate that. I do have to, and I look back that I mentioned that I started the business with $500 on a card table.
Yep.
My son was in seventh grade and I started the company, and he went with me to look for offices in seventh grade. And
Wow.
all through high school and college, he cold called in the summers. And,
Nice.
Christmas break, Thanksgiving break, he was at the office cold calling. And the thing that I knew that he was probably the right person, we were sitting around when he was just, I think maybe a junior or senior in college and having a couple of beers over the summer.
Yep.
And he asked the best questions anyone's ever asked me business wise. He goes, "Are you going to be in business 10 years from now? And if so, are you going to be doing the same thing you're doing today?" And I thought that was a great question. And the answer is yes, we are. And no, we're not doing anywhere near what we were doing at that
Yeah.
point. Our business has evolved immensely.
Yeah. 10 years is a lifetime in a business to begin with. So that is so cool. So what's one of your biggest learnings so far as the leader, as a business leader and owner?
I'm sure like many people, you know, running a business is far different than participating in a business, the multiple hats you have to wear. The biggest thing that I learned over the course of time, and it took me 20 plus years,
Yeah. Yeah.
is number one, just how important real marketing is. We did cold calls and, referrals and, word of mouth, but we didn't do digital marketing. We weren't out in the marketplace. And like I'm sure like a lot of business owners, the ebbs and flows of cash flow,
Yep.
uh, you have to be capitalized properly. And for a long period of time, we did it hand to mouth, which makes life even more complicated. It's hard enough running a business when you have, a big balance in the bank book
That's
and a
right.
bank account. But
Yep.
so those are the things that it took time to learn.
Okay. How about the flip side of the coin? What's your couple biggest challenges been, and how have you gotten past those?
The biggest challenges, have been across the board. You look back at the Great Recession. We were a young company. At that point, we were working. Now we work on monthly retainers. We were working on commission back then,
Okay.
and our clients did a lot of work with at that time Deere, Cat,
Yep.
Cummins Diesel. That business died up, and so our revenues really, really went down. I'd say the biggest challenge we have faced, and we did it, we were smart, we were ahead of the curve. So we kind of bypassed the challenge, but we created a challenge, and that was getting into new markets. Once China became somewhat easy to do business in over the last
Yep.
5, 10 years, the need to be China centric was a lot less needed out in the marketplace. And so
Gotcha.
we opened up in Viet Nam in 2017, and we opened up in India in 2020. So we brought on new markets to diversify,
Yep.
but it was a new challenge. I've been doing business in Vietnam most of my adult life, but India was a new market, and we had to learn that. So that was
Yeah.
definitely a self-inflicted challenge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the self-inflicted challenge, but that's like, a lot of business owners think they can do something right the first time and there's no cost, right? It's either going to cost you time or money to learn how to do something. And because we're human beings, the lessons stick when they're painful, right? You can't read about opening in India in a book and then go do it without going and, getting kind of punched in the face a couple times on, hey, the book didn't say this. And yet the ability to be a little ahead of that is going to pay dividends for, the next 20 years of your company because you were willing to go execute something that was focused and foreseeable, and you still got to invest in the learning. Like I think that's one of the big things that business owners skip. It's going to be time or money, right? And to learn a lesson,
It's going
investing
to be
in
both in
something.
most cases.
It's going to be both in most cases, but the the question becomes, as you're leading, are you aware of what the trade-off is, right? So if somebody bootstraps $100,000 a year company, their time's worth $50 an hour. You know, 50 times 2,000 is 100 grand. It's $1 million company. Now their time's worth $500 an hour. $10 million company, it's $5,000 an hour. And so if you're a $10 million company and you're trying to invest time to avoid spending $1,000 or whatever, then that trade-off starts to be unfavorable. But some trade-offs, the only way you can do it is to go and do it. Like going to India, I imagine you guys had to learn those lessons there because you can't dream them up here.
No, there's no doubt. And, one thing I'm proud of is the fact that, I took some personal sacrifice on the financial side to learn it. I mean, it was, we believed that this was a right move.
Yep.
And if it meant that my time and money was going to go there for a year or two on a learning curve, and it proved to be a very wise decision on our part and a wise
Yeah.
investment. And but the thing is that I always laugh with my son, kind of tongue in cheek. At some point, can we stop opening up new markets? I mean, it's we have that this week we had boots on the ground doing work on behalf of U.S. companies in 7 different countries in Southeast Asia. And 5 years or 8 years ago was strictly China.
Yeah.
And we are now looking into Latin America and Mexico. And we're actually doing a reshoring project for a U.S. company that is moving some production from China back to the U.S. for 100% because of a customer.
Yeah.
And they are removing product that was made in the U.S. to China, Malaysia. So they're flip-flopping where they're making the product. And so it seems like we have a never-ending opening up new markets.
Yeah. I mean, that probably is never going to end, right? Like, arbitrage of manufacturing and raw materials has been happening for 200 years. It's just sometimes more obvious now than it was, why
You're
do
spot
they?
on.
So, so if you had to pick
And the
three
word
people,
arbitrage is what we use around here. That really is smart people have moved production around the world for as long as we've made product. And what I something I think we're real proud of here is we have always tried to follow the smartest companies. And I think part of that goes back to I didn't know that people that made shoes were smart 40 years ago. But when I started going to China and I saying, well, you got Nike investing all this money.
yeah,
Well, then Nike decided we're going to move into Vietnam 10 years before anybody else did.
yep,
Well, they moved into Cambodia 10 years before anybody else. I mean, now they're in Africa, trying to develop that marketplace. And so smart people always find ways to find cheap labor and to make product in a more efficient and cheaper manner.
yeah. I mean, I think people miss that it happens to everything. Like, it's not just the labor and manufacturing moves. Like, there's a reason there's not huge banana plantations in the United States because the environment is more conducive. They can grow them faster and cheaper. And even with the cost of shipping, they're faster and cheaper to grow there. And things are going to find their way to where their highest value can be created. And it's similar to what you guys are doing. Like, it's also a little bit of arbitrage on, hey, I can lean on the ABC Group LLC and get this for X, or I got to invest all my own time and money, maybe 5, 6, 10X. to be able to do this things that you guys are so good at that you can do it for 1x, right? Like you guys can do it, your business is successful. And so if you're listening to this, if you think about like this is a grand scheme conversation when we talk about arbitrage, but that's how the companies become valuable over a long time by doing what they're best at, not by doing everything. So I imagine
Without a doubt.
your
And
son could be frustrated about opening new markets, but that's where your money's coming from, right? Like
now, without a
everyone's,
doubt. And the one thing I think that, to kind of piggyback what you just said, because we have boots on the ground throughout Southeast Asia, that we are able to take a company that wants to diversify their supply chain from China and take them to multiple markets, but more importantly, the right market. People always get excited. Well, Vietnam's the next China. No, it's not.
right.
It is. There are products that, clothing, footwear, furniture, they are the next China, or they're the current China. But if you want to buy forgings and castings, Vietnam is not the place to go. India or Thailand or Indonesia. And so, because of the fact that we have knowledge of all these different markets,
Yeah.
we can help people not spin their wheels trying to get into Vietnam when it's the wrong marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the next big thing for the ABC Group LLC? What are you guys working on the next 1 to 3 years? Another market? You're sending your
Yeah,
kid to
without a
Africa?
doubt. I mean, now we have a debate. I mean, obviously, Latin America and Eastern Europe are areas that
Yeah.
we've dabbled in, and we're probably going to have to get more serious on. Um, my hope for me is I do hope that at some point over the next 1 to 3 years, we explore Africa at a fairly extensive level. Because I do believe that maybe not in my work career, but in my son's, Africa is going to prove to be. I believe India is the best alternative to China today as a whole because they make so many products and the population is so big and the labor cost is so inexpensive.
Yeah.
So I'd say today I think India is the best alternative, but I believe Africa sometime in the next 5 to 15 years is going to be the best alternative to India.
Yeah. Interesting. So I have one last question for you that I never tell people I'm going to ask. And that question is there something you wish I would have asked you? And if there is, consider it asked.
Um, Good question. Um, to be perfectly honest, you caught me cold here. I do not
All
have
good.
anything that you could have
Well,
asked.
it's all good. Yeah. So, I mean, I think a couple high points, like as a coach, as a business growth person, your ability to let your son come in and do those things to help push your next level of the business. I think everybody should listen to that, especially people who are looking at transition and succession planning, because that's a high level skill to be able to acknowledge and, allow people come in and have different ideas than you. So Joe Jurken from the ABC Group LLC. Appreciate your time today. This was a great chat.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Thanks
You
for having
too.
me.